getting started with M's safety moment, and then I'll talk a little bit after safety moment, equity moment, and then talk a little bit about what we can expect for today. So, Em, I will turn over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ishmael. We all just talked about how it's getting dark outside. We're heading into colder months, and so some considerations for a safer winter. I'm going to pop in the chat here some reliable resources. Just a reminder that the Department of Health and 211 are resources for warming centers. They also have tips on weather preparedness, important things like carbon monoxide exposure prevention, which can happen at greater rates in the winter. Also, as we've talked about before, we can practice safety at the individual level. We talk about that a lot, but community safety is also very important. So, some signs that a neighbor might need help if there are no signs of like flashlights or lights around during an outage, if you notice uncleared walkways, or if somebody who's usually around has got quiet, those could all signal the need for a care check. On this topic of watching out for our neighbors, an example that happened in my neighborhood this week, we're in the middle of right now. My next door neighbor had a devastating house fire this week. And we know that that can happen at higher rates in cold months. So while in my household we couldn't prevent or put out the fire, we can help ease the impacts during a long recovery process, which can be especially hard in the winter. So we were able to provide them a gift card, and I listed here some other common needs during cold months for people in unsafe or inadequate housing. Especially in need are warm undergarments, hats and gloves, hand warmers, blankets, non-perishable snacks, insulated thermoses. It's an incredibly difficult and dangerous time for people with inadequate housing. So, all considerations to stay warm and stay safe as we move into the darker, colder months.
Great, thank you. And that's really that's a lot. Your neighbor, hopefully they're okay, and y'all are connected. And to your point about what you could do versus what you can't do, but being able to do something, I'm sure meant a lot or means a lot for them. Wow. Okay, just processing that. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna just do really briefly a sort of overview of agenda. I'll look to M here in a second for some housekeeping items, and then we'll dive in. So two things that I'll just say for us today in this meeting, you'll both topics are topics with some desire and emphasis from past EAG conversations. The first was a is I should say is a series, an ongoing series that System Planning ISP has brought to us about customer benefit indicators. The origin of that work actually began with the EAG, I should say, many years ago in sort of its first go ahead and round. And y'all might remember a couple of months ago, Brian and Uche talked a little bit about the need to update some of these customer benefit indicators. And so we had a good discussion then. We'll see a little bit of the evolution of that and sort of where we are today. And then after a short break, we'll have the customer outreach team present and organize a facilitated breakout group conversation. Again, similarly, customer outreach team is a very popular group among questions of the EAG, especially as it relates to engagement and outreach actions. And we've worked hard with I know that we've got several folks from the customer outreach team here today to talk a little bit about what feels relevant to bring to this group, so that folks can have a little bit more familiarity with the team, what the work is. But I think more, I'll say interestingly, from my perspective, the opportunity for you all to do some thinking and some strategizing about how customer outreach navigates some of the sort of key considerations that it's weighing up on a regular, weighing up on a daily as it does its work. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit about customer outreach, but I think again, importantly, you'll be able to contribute to the way in which that happens. So that's our meeting. We've got two, I think, juicy topics. I will do our part as the facilitators and facilitation team to make sure that we get to both. So I will do some teeing up as we move into them. But as we do that, I want to firstly just turn quickly back over to Em to share. I think you've got a couple of housekeeping items before I introduce Brian and Uche.
I do. Thank you, Ishmael. A couple quick updates on recruitment and governance committee. The website and application are going live this week. So I am going to give all the EAG members in the chat here a link to the application form. It's not updated yet. It should be any day now. You will know that it's updated when at the top where it currently has Ray's name, it will have my name, or we'll have like an updated EAG phone number. Ray's name will be gone. For folks who are watching online and can't see the chat, if you just go to the PSE EAG website, you can just search PSE EAG, it'll pop up, and that will have, once all the updates are made, there will be a link there that will take you to the application. But I wanted to give this direct link to the application to the EAG in case you would like to save it, share it with your communities. We will have space for up to 8 new members across our service area. Big recruitment opportunity. Watch your emails in the next coming weeks for upcoming recruitment guidelines. I'll send you some cheat sheets, some tips, some forwardable materials, and ways that you can support with outreach if you are interested. You can absolutely recommend people that you think would be great. Just tap them and point them towards that link that I just sent you, or you can send recommendations to me. I can follow up with them. GovCo update real quick. I don't know if there's a second slide for this. We can see.
I don't
Okay,
think so,
so
yeah.
I'll just speak it out loud. The governance committee has officially kicked off, and in addition to recruitment, they're going to be supporting end of year evaluation. So you can also expect to get a message with. They're going to be working with me to set up a really good format to capture your reflections on this year and then gather input as we move forward. So just keep an eye on your email in December. Even while we don't have a meeting, there will still be some opportunities to contribute in that quieter time of year. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Em, for housekeeping. Okay, so we'll transition into the meat of today. Again, I just want to say, and I know some folks joined. I see Megan joined. Hi, TJ. I'm not sure if Karia joined sort of in that last sort of opening portion there. Hi, welcome everyone. In case it wasn't top of mind, this is our last sort of group EAG meeting of this year. So we'll have another recess in December. We won't be silent or absent as we continue to move things forward. But yeah, looking forward to us to have hopefully some two strong conversations to close us out. And so I invite people to be active participants. I know that we're getting into the sleepy months. We're about to start hibernating, but as a facilitator, I always appreciate cameras on. If you got something going on in the background, you can take care of your life. Please do, as always. But it's great to see and feel the engagement. Okay. So I'm going to here briefly turn over to Uche and Brian as we talk about customer benefit indicators. And as they will do here shortly and talk a little bit about the evolution of this work from past meetings, I want to just preface by saying there's a lot here for us to dig into. And so I want to make sure that Brian and Uche, yeah, you're clear with some of the sort of key questions that we want to get from folks because yeah, it's been really involved and there's been a lot of great feedback. And so I know that we could spend all of the meeting in customer benefit indicators. And unfortunately, alas, we cannot. But I will turn over the microphone to you all and manage as is helpful.
Well, thank you so much, Ishmael. Hopefully you all can hear me. It's good to see you all today, this gloomy evening. But as Ishmael said, we've got a lot of real meaty topic here, so we want to dive into it. Uche and I are back again. We came back in July where we first talked about customer benefit indicators and wanting to make revisions and updates to those indicators. We're back here today, not only to show you some of the revisions of the metrics, but the key question is to what extent do these revised metrics really demonstrate the impact we're trying to have in those individual areas? And Uche will walk us through those individual metrics. I'm going to give a bit of a preface here. So if we can go to the next slide. One of the EAG priorities is accountability, and we think taking this time to illustrate how we track, how we show our progress over time, especially as it relates to equity considerations through the use of these customer benefit indicators, really aligns with how we think about accountability here. Next slide, please. So as Ishmael mentioned, there's the core objective here is to reflect on the challenges. That's what we did back in July. And then the second piece is we really want to hear from you all at the consult level to provide impact on these refined metrics and really understanding how these refined metrics align with the impacts we're aiming to achieve. The other piece I want to point out is, yes, this is a regulatory requirement, meaning in the rules, it is stated that whenever we propose updated metrics, that we come before this body, this advisory group here. So that is why we are also here today, is because it is a regulatory requirement. Next slide, please. You've seen this before. Two things I want to call out is that customer benefit indicators really originated from our CEIP rules and process that we've done. As Ishmael stated, this body, this work has been presented with the EAG beforehand, and so we're continuing that by keeping you all up to speed. And then the purpose of these customer benefit indicators is truly to measure our progress and to show how benefits are matriculating to customers, especially those in named communities. Okay, next slide. Before I turn it over to Uche, let's start back with where we're at. There are three categories that Uche is going to present: outreach and engagement, jobs, and community health. Now, the reason we've chosen these three is because of the items you see here. One, we did an assessment to understand the gaps, the limitations on our current metrics. And because of that, we now have these three categories we want to come back to this group and discuss. Back in July, we had this discussion. We've incorporated the feedback we heard back in July, and thank you to all those who provided that feedback. And so you'll see some of that reflected here today. The other thing we were very mindful of is thinking about feasibility, meaning, is this data we can actually track, measure, and gather? So you'll see that has been reflected in the metrics that you see. And just one other thing is that these are metrics that we'll report on in the future later on here. So I'm going to turn it over to Uche. She's going to walk us through some of the feedback and then go through each category of the CBIs.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. I think you skipped a slide. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to walk you through the updates we've made to our CBIs and our metrics. So this word cloud highlights some of the key themes we heard from you during our July meeting. And like Brian said, we really appreciate your input. And I just want to emphasize that your feedback has been really instrumental in shaping the updates that you will see today. I'll just point out a few examples. So for outreach materials, accessibility emerged as a major theme. And we also heard about the importance of partnerships, trust building, and hands-on support, especially for our customers with unique barriers, such as our seniors and those with limited English proficiency. And so while we may not have metrics tied directly to all the insights we gathered from you, for instance, physical location, I just want to emphasize that we're being very intentional about our efforts to meet our customers where they are and with what they need, especially those that are hardest to reach. And you will hear more about these efforts later in the second phase of the presentation from our customer outreach team. We can go to the next slide. Yep. So earlier in July, we discussed the challenges and gaps we identified with our outreach CBI. Some of our metrics, or I would say majority of our metrics, were mainly output focused rather than outcome based. And they lacked insights into language needs, program context, or partnerships, all of which are essential for addressing cultural and linguistic barriers. So our goal with the revised metrics is to better reflect and inform our efforts to reduce those barriers, ensuring that we're making outreach more inclusive and more effective for our customers in named communities. We can go to the next slide. So this slide shows the evolution of our outreach metrics from current to revised. We introduced important dimensions like language access and partnerships, which align directly with the feedback we heard from you. For example, we'll start tracking outreach materials and engagement activities in our top 3 non-English languages, that is Spanish, Mandarin, and Russian. We'll also track partnerships, which, like we heard, play a very crucial role in building trust and extending our reach, particularly to those audiences PSC may not otherwise engage directly. And just comparing our existing metrics to the updates that we have made today, we can see that our revised metrics are more meaningful, they're more actionable, and kind of better aligned with the outcomes we all care about. But at this point, we'll also love to hear your thoughts on our revisions. And our question to you is, how do these metrics emphasize the goal or demonstrate the impacts we're aiming to achieve? More specifically, impacts around reducing linguistic, cultural, and awareness barriers for customers in named communities. I can pause here for thoughts.
And I'm just adding to the chat right now exactly that language again, so folks can use as a reference. Dennis says, is there a focus on new partnerships at the neighborhood level?
Well, I'm sure that will arise, but currently we are focused on tracking the number of organizations that we collaborate with for outreach and engagement. And based on our understanding of our customer needs and those that are hard to reach, that should inform new partnerships. And we'll continue to track those as we evolve.
Thanks, Uche. And again, just as I get myself together and see TJ's hand. So yeah, we're looking for, does the revised metrics, the thing on the right, the column on the right, get us closer to our initial goal of what set us to revise the metrics in the first place, which is what's in the chat. TJ isn't thinking about it. So some of the things you're saying, which totally make sense, and you're talking a little bit in the sort of like how things happen, how transition happens or how that consistency happens. So do you think that these revised metrics help you understand that those things are happening well, or do you think that they're missing a nuance for the I'm gonna go, Dennis, if you're okay with it, can I go Amy and then back to you, just because I know you had a question in the chat earlier. I'll start with Amy and then I'll come to you, Dennis.
Hi.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Amy. I'll go to Dennis and then I'll read some of the things in the chat. And I think that's why Uche was alluding a little bit to customer outreach in the back half of the meeting as well when we talk about approach on some of these things. But those are well taken right now as well. Dennis. Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Yeah, thanks, Dennis and Amy and TJ and jumping in. Also, some folks in the chat. Karia, you're saying thrilled to see the revised metrics. Really want to understand a little bit more about sort of the in-language customer support. And you said, I like the way you said it's important to offer the complete package. So just to get like a little gut check, as some folks, TJ said this is a good start moving in the right direction. Elizabeth wrote in the chat, this is a more comprehensive way to track success. And so we'll have a chance, for example, in customer outreach to hear a little bit more and talk a little bit more about the how, but do we feel like the set that we've got here is a fair step along the way to better achieving our goal? I see a head from Glenda, head from TJ. Okay. Okay. That's going to be perfect. Thumbs up from Karya. That's going to be sort of our format here for these other pieces as well. So not everything is well taken about the how we do outreach, and we'll talk a little bit about that this evening as well. But glad to hear that what we're tracking is landing as moving towards that initial goal. So I will pass it back, I'm assuming, back to Uche for clean energy jobs.
Yeah. So the clean energy job. So as we discussed in July, this CBI presented unique challenges, including the lack of a consistent definition of clean energy across the board. And there was also limited, or rather no, I would say limited utility-specific guidance on this topic. And one of the major challenges was the diffuse nature of clean energy projects, which is spread across regions and carried out by multiple contractors. And those regions operate under different labor standards. There was delayed commercial operation, all of which made data collection really difficult and challenging to track consistently. Because many of these challenges are far outside of our control, we decided to narrow our focus to metrics we can meaningfully influence and track consistently. Specifically, we're now interested in tracking improvements in access to job opportunities created by PS's clean energy projects in named communities. We can move to the next slide. So here you'll see our current and revised metrics for clean energy jobs. During this process, we decided to remove some existing metrics that presented persistent data challenges, such as job types, local workers, compensation, demographics. You'll see that on the next slide. But for now, we decided to move forward with 3 key dimensions, namely jobs created, workforce development pathways, and supplier diversity. So for jobs created, we'll pivot to using an economic model, e.g. JEDI or deeper, to generate those macro level estimates resulting from PS's investments in clean energy projects. Workforce development pathways and supplier diversity are new additions. And like we would agree, they're very essential for addressing long-standing inequities. So for workforce development, the key point I'd like to emphasize is that clean energy projects will create jobs regardless. But the real equity issue is whether people in named communities have the right skills and credentials to access these jobs. So without intentional pathways, they may not benefit from the clean energy economy. That's why we are interested in tracking those clean energy related workforce development programs, especially those that serve individuals in named communities. And likewise, for supplier diversity, we want to understand how our clean energy projects and investments support businesses owned by women, people of color, veterans, and other underrepresented groups. We believe tracking this will help ensure that our clean energy investments expand economic opportunities for underserved groups, and this will eventually help reduce some of the long-standing inequities in access to opportunities. Again, we believe, given the constraints that we had with the data challenges we experienced, these updates are reflective of what really matters and what is also feasible to track. And we're looking to you for your feedback here. Do these metrics demonstrate those kind of impacts we're aiming to achieve around improving access to job opportunities, resulting from our clean energy investments?
Yeah, well laid out, Uche. Dennis and then Elizabeth. In your way backwards, you do see those as these metrics as things that are worthwhile to understand and capture and make progress towards, and a way to do that in that workforce development pathway is this strategic focus that you're describing. Thanks, Dennis. Elizabeth, yeah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of echo what Dennis is saying about the number of clean energy related workforce development programs sponsored by PSE, and in its importance. And I would like to note more about those programs themselves and like how that is measured and outreach is happening in the communities. Knowing a little bit more about that to know if this metric is actually like this metric would be really good. But I don't know much about the programs themselves and like hearing them or knowing them in any communities. So
Yeah, I think that's totally fair feedback for today's conversation too. You're sort of like not necessarily signing off that exactly how we get here is like 100%, two thumbs up. It's like if we get here, that's great, but I appreciate that Elizabeth's like, we would have to be able to have a little bit more insight into, some of those particular approaches, which is kind of similar to the conversation we're having with customer outreach. Yeah, cool. I think our team and PC team should be taking notes just so we can help flag some of those program specifics as we move forward. Okay, just before I see Dennis, anybody else, maybe anyone else with the flag, does anyone else see a disconnect, or is this feeling relatively, yeah, again, moving in the right direction as far as the intended goal of increasing access to job opportunities? Thumbs up from Megan. Again, I was in an in-person meeting this week and I was telling people sitting in a group, I'm like, I love a thumbs up. I'll take a thumbs up. You can also give me a thumbs down too. That's okay also. But just letting us know what's happening. Okay. Rachel said you're a little confused about the suppliers part still. So maybe if someone can respond to Rachel, and if that's still unclear, we can loop back to it. And Karia said, I think the accessibility of these workforce development programs for non-English speaking workers, what kind of resource and training will be available to address the gaps? A little bit of sort of our first two conversations. Okay. I'm going to move us forward in the slides, but yeah, an outstanding question in the chat. If someone can help Rachel's question.
I don't know.
Gotcha. Uche, I don't know if you have any knowledge after talking to the team.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to you with some information on that.
Yeah. And I think, Rachel, to your point, there is a lot of self-identification for some of the suppliers. And so we have a system that allows us to understand which of the sort of contractors, third parties that we work with, who have decided to identify themselves as women-owned or veteran-owned, or any of the other groups in their tag as a supplier for PSC. So that's something that's sort of housed within the database based on what the supplier is willing to share. But like Uche said, we can provide some more information later.
So I think, yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, we're eliminating some of our instantly, and these are the metrics: job types, local workers, demographics, and compensation. We can move on to the next slide. Community health, CBI. So this one is a bit different from the others we just went through. So previously, we relied on hospital discharge rate as our metric, but we found that it's too broad and heavily influenced by many factors unrelated to PSC's work. It also misses community-specific impacts that are practical and relatable. Their privacy constraints, the technical complexities with hospital data really makes it difficult to interpret them or inform any kind of meaningful targeted interventions for the communities. So to address these limitations, we decided to shift to a community health approach guided by the social determinants of health. And these are those non-medical conditions or factors that shape people's well-being, such as housing, food security, education, and economic stability. And we know that research consistently show that interventions based on social determinants of health are among the most effective strategy to improve well-being and reduce those long-standing health inequities. So guided by the insights, our goal is to refine our metrics so that they better capture how our clean energy programs, such as our solar grants, enhance community health through those improvements in the social determinants of health. We're also very interested in understanding how some of our customers, such well-being. We can go to the next slide. So this slide outlines the methodology that we use to explore how PSC solar grants may contribute to improved community health. So first, we reviewed some of the existing grant applications of our CBO solar grant recipients to assess how the solar project aligns with the organization's missions and services, and how the organizations also support underserved groups. And we also assess the types of community benefits expected from the reduced utility costs. Another step we took was to identify the recurring benefit themes that emerged from the preliminary analysis, such as food security, children's well-being, housing stability, and tribal support. And with these themes, we developed our post-benefit survey questions, which we plan to distribute in spring of 2026. I want to emphasize that this work is really important, especially given the current challenges like funding cuts to essential programs like SNAP, the supply shortages at food banks. We do know that the demand for basic services is rising and resources are really constrained. And so supporting our CBOs ensures that help reaches those that are most in need, especially those that we can't reach directly. We can go to the next slide. So on this slide, you'll see some examples of our survey questions and draft metrics for community health. We have a complete list in the appendix section. And another point I want to make is that this is a pilot effort, and the feedback we receive from the surveys, which we'll disseminate in spring, will help us refine and finalize some of the metrics you see on the right. Our goal is to ensure that our metrics are meaningful, they are actionable, and they are aligned with those community needs and priorities that we learn about. We'll also like to hear your thoughts here as well. And so our question is, how solar grants for community health through those pathways like we listed, food security, housing stability, tribal support, and more, along those social determinants of health.
Uche, you froze a little bit as you were talking, but I think if you want to say it again, but I think it's similar format to what we've been talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, so my question is, looking at the surveys and the sample metrics, do they capture how solar grants may influence community health through pathways like food security, housing stability, tribal support, and other social determinants of health, the conditions that influence well-being?
Thanks for repeating yourself, Uche. Elizabeth, says, I appreciate the addition of narrative and stories. On that third bullet, I can see summaries of stories, narratives, how specific initiatives or programs, example, solar grant, made a difference in community health dimension. Give folks a moment here if you're reading, but seeing if this, similarly to the other benefit indicator groups, do we see a relationship that feels relevant, or do we feel like we are there's some distance? And if maybe we're in like a I'm not tracking or I'm tracking and it's fine. I've got no problems with this. Which camp are we in? All is accepted. Elizabeth went this way. I don't know if that was the front or back. Okay, it was a thumbs up. Okay, yeah. Okay. Karya asked, are these going to be multiple choice questions, this sample survey question?
No, they're not multiple choice.
I think
I have a question. Sorry, she raised her hand. I didn't. I'm just gonna pop in since it was so quiet.
Go ahead, Megan. Yeah, Megan first, and then I think I saw C and Glenda. We'll do the three of us and then the three of y'all, and then we'll wrap there. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
I'm just wondering, I get the kind of the second two questions, but how does your organization define or understand community health? Can you, maybe I missed it, but can you describe why you're asking them to define it or understand it instead of like, you know, kind of giving them more specifically what we're looking for?
Yeah, the reason why that question was asked is because, you know, the solar projects, which we provide solar grants for, are tied to specific missions and services for the CBOs. So we really wanted to understand how, you know, they understand community health based on the services and their organization's mission and how they support those underserved groups and, you know, the expected benefits they see based on the needs and the priorities of the community members they interact more with. So I would believe that different CBOs may have different definitions of community health along those dimensions of the social determinants of health, those conditions that influence well-being. It could be housing, it could be food security, it could be, you know, children support, whatever they feel that, you know, how they really see community health based on the needs of the priorities of the communities they support was the goal. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Megan. C briefly, and then if Glenda, if you still had a point, we'll go there. Yeah.
A good question, and thank you for that. So we reviewed existing applications from 2021 to 2024, the body of applications from different CBUs for that time period.
Yeah, that's a fair point of the ultimately you're trying to ensure that there are some impacts in communities, but if you don't hear directly from those communities, then there's a filtering that potentially happens, or there's a potential for filtering. So I see some folks also agreeing with that in the chat. Just in the interest of time, Megan, if you're okay, could I just go to Glenda, just because I think she had tried to jump in earlier, and then we'll move forward. Yeah, thanks.
I think
Good. So there's some general shared feelings among the group around that little bit of discomfort about that distance to ultimately who we're trying to learn is benefiting from and the mechanisms in which they happen. And I think that's fair. Awesome. Okay. I saw Megan, I think you put in the chat, you lowered your hand. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for that. There was a lot there to cover in a short amount of time. Brian or Uche, any final words about anything you heard?
Yeah, well, I know that has been addressed, but I also wanted to respond in some way, but not fully. So the post-benefit survey questions are going to go with, I mean, for the CBO recipients, they are required to provide a post-benefit report as part of the grant, like the requirements for the grant. And so our plan is to insert those questions, you know, in that report or the questions that will go along to for them to provide the report on, if that makes sense. And again, we kind of thought about the biases. And so leaning on the stories and narratives, we're really hoping to capture the experiences from the community members that they support. It's just one of the things, what I wanted to add.
Thanks, Uche. Brian, anything from?
Nothing
Yeah.
from me. I just want to say thank you to all the members and the really thoughtful questions here. I think we've got a lot to take back and sort of rethink. And thank you just for the feedback here.
So, well, thank y'all. Thank y'all for being back and showing and talking to these evolutions, and clearly a lot of good, quick feedback. So kudos to the EAG members as well for working through a lot there and providing some quick feedback. In the interest of time, and I know this slide says 10 minutes, which is often not what we have, I'm going to invite everyone to, at any point, as always, take care of yourself as you need to. If you need to turn off your camera, if you need to sort of listen to the meeting and step away as you get some water, stretch your legs, use the restroom, please do that at any moment that you need. I'm going to keep us moving forward to make sure that we get some good time here from customer outreach through the rest of our allotted time in the meeting, but I don't want to discount folks from the ability to feel like you can just take care of yourself. So hopefully you didn't need me to say that, but please feel free to do so. And as always, and I think Ariam will help in managing if folks are tuning in remotely, watching the Zoom, the YouTube link, the ability for public comment will happen shortly near the end of the meeting. I think we'll at least get to 6:55, if not 6:50. So, okay. So I'm going to invite a customer outreach team, and thank you again, Uche and Brian, and invite you all came really with the full team here. So y'all are well represented. If you want to just kick us off, and again, as always, I can move through your slides, and for everyone's benefit and awareness, we're hoping to end today with a breakout group discussion. So making sure that we're keen to get to that. So I see Melissa and Jessica have come on camera, so take it away, whichever it may be.
All right, well, thank you all for having us today. So we've got a couple members of our team that'll be joining, myself and Jessica, as well as Rosa and Juan, in order to kind of give you some more information around what we do, and then also just have a really robust conversation around some of the barriers we're experiencing. So you can move on to the next slide. So as part of this discussion, we kind of play in a lot of different fields, from affordability to accessibility, but advocacy is really where we want to kind of find some partnership in our strategy with the EAG. So we've identified a couple of issue areas where there is some opportunity for systematic change, and just also for kind of that thought calibration of some of the barriers that we see both internally and externally as we do our work. So we wanted to kind of bring us in and have that conversation with the EAG today. Next slide. I think there's a slide before this as well. Yes. All right. So as part of that, it is a consult and involve. So we'll provide some information around some of the tactics that we do, how we strive to equitably serve customers within the deepest need, and to provide some of that insight for you and help provide some support. We can move on to the next slide. Excellent. All right. So overall, kind of our mission as customer outreach is we're a targeted outreach team. You often hear the term outreach. So we talk about big O, little o internally. So we're a big O. Outreach is our name, and we're here to provide support with our deepest need and hardest to reach customers with program opportunities where they are and with what they need in order to participate. So we can move on. So for the past 17 years, customer outreach has been the local team in the community sharing program information with customers and community partners on programs and products that can help them lower their bill and help them reach their sustainability goals. But as PSE's programs have evolved to meet the needs of more customers with lower incomes and higher barriers to participation, the team has adjusted our strategy to really leverage our strength of in-person engagement to reach those customers. In 2022, we made a huge shift to focus solely on customers in named community, as we had a more robust program portfolio that could support these customers directly in field. Move on to the next slide. So our team is part of a larger effort to reach PSC customers with program education and awareness. Marketing, it supports programs with awareness and education through broad reach and targeted campaigns using things like social channels and marketing channels. They also support by creating flyers and program education in language through partnerships with local agencies for more culturally relevant materials that we end up using in field, both the outreach team and the events team. Our local events team, they reach customers through like bundled program promotion at large scale events, like think farmers markets, Issaquah Salmon Days. We have, maybe like the larger fairs that are going on, as well as targeted program specific event needs. So they may do a ride and drive in Skagit to help support our EV programs, or maybe they work with the Sounders to provide, flex program campaigns. And then we've got our customer outreach team. So they focus on customers who face the highest barriers to participation, so who might not otherwise have access to our programs. We reach customers through one-on-one connection. That could be through small workshops, individual appointments at a library, and supporting by working directly with community partners to reach our customers where they're at. You can move on to the next one. So most importantly, part of how we do our engagements is by partnering with local nonprofit organizations and trusted entities. We listen to what they're seeing and who their customers are, and then we collaborate on how we can show up in the community. So for example, we've partnered with over 300 unique CBOs this year, over 800 times. So we'll work kind of through multiple workshops and classes. We may come to an organization and we'll host a series of workshops, or maybe we've got one a quarter where we're participating with the same communities to try to reach more customers. So we mainly focus on smaller organizations at the local level to try to connect with the variety of organizations to serve the customers that we're hoping to help. We start by understanding customers with those highest barriers to participate in programs, and then we try to find CBOs that reach those customers. Although we might not engage with CBOs who serve customers who don't face as high as barriers, there's a ton of organizations we do engage with, and we're always open to suggestion on new organizations we may not be aware of. So we then work on customer priorities to really understand what their energy needs are. And most of that is oftentimes affordability and bill assistance. So we start there, helping them to sign up for those assistance programs, anything that is no cost programs that they can participate in or that have a kind of a credit to their bill. Then we add on lower cost program education and expand into other programs that they might be interested in. So we don't always necessarily go directly with clean energy programs. We're going to start with helping them to reduce their bill first, and then expand on that education and awareness. But we always want to start with their priorities to meet their needs first and foremost when we're out in the community. And with that, I will turn it over to Rosa.
Next slide. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosa Gonzalez Byron. I'm one of the outreach managers for King County, specifically North and East. And as you can see here in this photo, this is some of the work that I've done in the community all over King County in this with this organization, Evergreen Goodwill. So I work a lot with seniors, and one thing that I found with seniors is that there's always technology barriers. They're always a little bit hesitant to do anything on a computer or on a mobile phone. And so I had to kind of step outside the box and think a little bit like, how can I help break that barrier? And so I remembered that Evergreen Goodwill, from work that I've done in the past with them, that they have this digital equity bus, as you see there in the photo, and it's like a classroom setup style. And so I thought, well, you know what? I need to bring this digital equity bus into community to rural areas where our seniors are that would have these technology barriers so that we could help them get signed up for our bill assistance programs and specifically our Flex Rewards program. That takes a little bit longer to sign up for, about 20 to 25 minutes per customer. And so I thought, well, let's bring it to three communities and pilot it out. And as you can see here, these are some of our seniors at Carnation Apartments in Carnation. And so we were able to get them on board, get them signed up. My colleague and I and Evergreen Goodwill's technical guru were able to work with all the customers that were on board to walk them through the application process, kind of helping them navigate technology and how to create an email address, how to create a My PSC account so that they could get signed up for the PSC Flex rewards, and then also bill assistance. And so, you know, they were pretty successful workshops. A lot of the seniors felt more comfortable afterwards. This was mostly to empower them so that when renewal comes up, they're able to get, you know, maybe go through that process on their own and sign up for our programs. Other ways that we engage in community is one-on-one appointments directly in communities, such as mobile home communities. I do a lot of in-language Spanish communities with mobile homes. I also visit a lot of low-income apartment communities where we bring those direct workshops where we help them sign up for those programs and also educate them on those programs. And then we also work with a lot of nonprofit organizations to train their staff on how to fill out our applications online so that they are aware of all those little intricacies that are involved with the application so that they're being filled out correctly when they're helping the families that they work directly with. So I'll turn it over to Juan for the next slide.
All right, thank you, Rosa. There we go. Oh, one more. There we go. All right, so my name is Juan Farias Torres, and I am an outreach manager here in the northern region. So I cover Skagit, Snohomish, Whatcom, and Island County. And today I just wanted to share with you guys some of the pivots to the barriers that we've encountered throughout this year. And, you know, this year has been a pretty tough year for a lot of communities that we serve. It's brought a lack of trust in institutions and fear over the current political climate. Many of our English as a second language communities were affected by the threat of, you know, what's going on right now, ICE and everything else. So naturally, you know, these communities have not shown up in the way that they normally do to our events. So you know, we needed to come up with different ways to reach these customers that we weren't able, you know, that kind of backed away a little bit as a result of these barriers that we're facing that are, you know, kind of external and out of our control. So one of the solutions that we came up with was to create an online virtual office hour. So right now, the outreach team has every Monday, we have a virtual office hours in the morning from 10 to 11 a.m. and then in the evening from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Right now, in fact, one of our other outreach leads is in that meeting in case anybody shows up. And this meeting is, you know, open to the entire public. Everybody is welcome. There's no invite needed and there's no appointment needed. People can just show up and ask, you know, any questions that they have. This has allowed us to remove some of the bigger barriers for customers being able to, you know, just have access to us or to these programs and to PSC information. Another way we were able to, you know, find another solution was through mini pop-ups and walk-in appointments at local libraries. You know, just making ourselves available in these very public places for all of our customers to be able to, you know, just walk in there and sign up for programs, ask questions, basically just have, you know, an in-person touch with PSC, which, you know, it's not something that's really out there as much anymore, since our service centers are no longer open to the public. And then another solution that we came up with, actually, it happened here in Skagit. I work with a local powerful partner called MANA, Mutual Aid Partners in Action. This organization works with English as second language communities, and it was really impactful to be able to work with this organization and create kind of a tactic that was kind of out of the box and something that, we haven't really done before to reach customers that we're going to have a really difficult time reaching due to all these external factors that are out there. So we did a call-a-thon in which, we, myself, the executive director, and some organization volunteers, we got together and we just started calling up people and helping them sign up for programs over the phone. And these are the individuals that, we were not going to be able to find basically anywhere. And these are individuals who do not trust other organizations. The only reason they're able to trust MANA, or Mutual Aid Neighbors in Action, is because this individual, the director of this organization, has been out in the community for many years, and has a very strong tie to this to the community. So when she calls, people answer her. So that has been a very impactful relationship for me here at PSC, and it has really allowed us to reach those really hard to reach customers that we probably otherwise not have access to. And we actually have another call-a-thon planned. I think it's going to be either later this month or early December. So we're just trying to get in there, and before these cold months come in, and just get people set up with their assistance program so they don't have to worry about whether or not they can turn on their heat in the winter and keep their kids warm. So yeah. Go ahead, next slide, and I'll give it back.
Yeah, thank you, Juan and Rosa. So I'm Jessica McColgan. I'm the manager of the customer and community outreach team. And just wanted to point out too, like in the appendix of the slides that were sent out ahead of time, there's a lot more information about some of the work that this team does. It's really hard to cram so much of it into it in a tiny amount of time, but there's also some great images for you to see kind of them out and about in the community, and also a link to a video of one of those library pop-ups that Juan mentioned. You can just get a sense for what those are like and just kind of how we're engaging with customers. So just wanted to point that out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about barriers that we face in our work, and this is where we really want to shift the conversation and gather your input and thoughts on kind of how we can address some of these systemic issues. Also in the appendix, there's more of these internal plus external barriers. I'm just going to focus on 2 internal and 2 external right now. We can get into some of those other ones in the breakout rooms. So one of the things internally that we have to navigate is we have over 100 plus programs at PSE to serve our customers, which is so good. There's so much, so many options, a lot of variety, but the problem is, how do we prioritize? How do we help customers through that? Because that can also be overwhelming. So for our team, what we do is we really, as Melissa has mentioned, it's really looking at which of the programs can serve our customers best, kind of what are those priorities that they have, and then which are the ones that they have highest barriers to participate in, and then let's engage with those customers. So that's what we work on. And then also try to figure out, in order for us to reach a lot of these customers and make sure everyone's included in the clean energy transition, we have requirements to meet with a lot of these customers, help them become aware of these programs, and help them sign up for them, for those that we can sign up for in person. And then so we really look at those and try to find ways that we can help get some of those, underserved customers engaged in the clean energy transition. And then also program prerequisites and technology-driven goals don't always match the customer's unique circumstances, which basically means a lot of the programs that are part of the clean energy transition might not be the top priority for customers that we're working with. We've got flex batteries for backup, resiliency. We have electric vehicles, but the customer just might want help reducing their bill, right? And so that's where we also try to, we have goals that as a company we need to meet for the clean energy transition to include everyone in it, but we also want to make sure that we're going to our customers with the right information and not seeming like we're just disconnected from what their actual realities are. So we do provide feedback through internal channels internally. And then we also work, we have thought partnership with our program teams to try to find creative solutions to help with design in the future as we're hearing back from customers. Next slide, please. So on our external barriers, just a couple that we wanted to highlight that we face is, as I'm sure many of you are aware of, we're only one of many support services that customers have to fill out unique applications for. They're looking for, they might be looking for support with childcare, with transportation, housing, and we all have different forms or different formats to sign up for. So we don't, we want to try to reduce those barriers. So we partner with CAP agencies and community-based organizations, as we've been talking about, to train the staff on the application processes. So while they're signing customers up for one program that with another entity, they can sign up for our programs as well. And then also, as we've been talking about, increased one-on-one sign-up assistance that Rosa and Juan have talked about. And then right now, capacity and staffing of community-based organizations, tribal partners is limited. And so we don't want to overburden them when there's already a lot of challenges, funding cuts, lots of goals to meet, high needs in the community. So we try to provide funding to help, for those nonprofits to help cover cost and time. So if they're supporting us with, trans creation in the community through local, so through their local partners, we cover the cost of that to make sure it's worth their time. And then we try to bundle requests to reduce the strain on those. So we're not going back many times back to the same organization to partner. And then also try to work internally to try to align and coordinate, as well as with external vendors to prioritize any requests we have of a single organization or tribe. Again, just to understand what their goals are, what their needs are, and then let's prioritize what the best things to bring to them are to meet those priorities. So I'm going to hand it over, I believe, back to Ishmael.
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, thank you. We're going to move into a discussion here and actually in a breakout discussion. But while we're all here and can hear it together, yeah, thanks to Melissa and Jessica, and then also Rosa and Juan for sharing some of those examples. I saw a lot of hearts in that. So one thing I want to just do is acknowledge before we move into breakouts is I'm just going to describe what we're doing and why, and then can take to make sure that we're all clear and on the same page. If there's feedback about the nuances around any of these details, we'll handle those in the respective breakouts. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just click back, for example, for one is we've got customer outreach presenting us as Melissa said up front, the hope here is that some of that partnership work here is really in this sort of advocacy level. How do we navigate these trade-offs, or how do we help customer outreach navigate these trade-offs? On the internal, it's this barrier of these 100 programs, and it's about the fact that technology-driven goals maybe aren't always human-centered or, matching human needs. On the external, it's the sort of one-to-many, and it's not always a straightforward way that people can engage across all of these different opportunities. It might put additional burden on them. And then specifically, Melissa talked earlier with the slide with the arrows that the approach for customer outreach is really to lean on some CBOs and partners. But we talked even as earlier that capacity is something that we want to not overlook. And so we're going to split the room, this room here, in two at random. Some addressing internal barriers, I believe with Jessica and, am I right, Rosa? Is that right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Jessica and Rosa, and then Melissa and Juan will be addressing the external barriers. So getting into the details, we'll do in the breakouts, but brief pause before we hit go on breakout rooms. My question here is about clarity. Do people understand what's happening? See, what's your hand there?
I don't have a detailed question. I have an overall question. Is that something I can ask here before we go into breakouts or after we come out of breakouts?
Overall about sort of customer outreach and approach.
Yeah, about all the barrier stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that in breakouts, and then if it feels like it isn't satisfied, then we can acknowledge as we're coming out. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's relevant to everybody in this room. So
Okay.
I think I'll try to ask it after breakouts. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. When I get Ishmael's note to do so, you will automatically be put in a breakout room. So no need to do anything. And then you will automatically be brought back to the room around 6:50.
And I see TJ's question, and I'm going to look to Melissa and Jessica respectively, or Rosa and Juan respectively. So can you put in the chat the difference between internal and external? When we go into our breakouts, can y'all describe you're in the internal group and here's why that's labeled that way, and vice versa. Cool. Within PSE, external outside of PSE. Melissa said it's easy. I can do it in half a second. Awesome. Okay. Ariam, let's give this a go, and then we'll be back at 6:50 and we can do a brief report out.
Hi there. I will put you back in your room.
Thank you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. If you were like our group, just you got yanked out of the middle of a sentence, but we were in there for like 28 minutes. We know that this is a conversation that we are beginning, not beginning. We there's a lot to continue to unpack here. So I wanted to just give an opportunity. Maybe I'll ask Melissa and Juan and Jessica and Rosa to just briefly share. You don't have to get into too many of the specifics, but what sort of is resonating with you as you come out of that conversation, and then we can sort of see if there's a final, 90 seconds or so in case there's anything else that people want to say aloud while we're all here before we look to see if there's public comment. If that's cool. Melissa and Jessica, I didn't tell you I was going to do that, but if you're okay, just sort of with what's resonating as we come back into the full group.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was resonating was utilizing, partnerships with students and similar. First, I believe the city of Seattle does their PACE program, which utilizes, neighbors in order to have that kind of pre-built trust in the communities and to see how are the ways that we can advocate for that internally. And then also just the general enthusiasm for the conversation from our group.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Melissa. Oh yeah, Juan, please. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely kind of what Melissa said, just the general enthusiasm from the group, really appreciated that. And I'm also the whole idea of the, college students, that's starting to resonate with me and, just trying to, it was something that I hadn't considered before, right? So it's, getting gears turning in my head now. So I'll have to explore that a little bit more with the team.
Yeah. Jessica, thanks,
Okay,
Juan.
yeah, I can jump in. It's because ours were the internal barriers. We talked about really that whole customer journey is what, I think is resonating with me, which is something that we try to provide feedback on as a group that works externally in the community, providing that feedback internally so we can have that that full experience where they can talk to someone in person with our team, maybe in Spanish, helping them sign up, but can they get that full journey all the way through? Same thing with automation for eligibility. And, those are tools that as an outreach team, we don't design, but that we would love to have and we'll be able to rely on the screening, which some people talk about the screening before promoting programs. How can we make sure we're getting really precise information to share with customers to really help their needs through any kind of initial screening? And then I'm going to hand it over and see if Rosa had anything to add on that as well.
I think you covered it. I was thinking the same thing. It's just more of wanting to see that one-stop shop versus like a bunch of different places that our customers have to go to, fill out one application here and one over there. You know, having that a little bit more streamlined, I think would make things a little bit more easier for our customers. So yeah.
Thanks y'all for doing that brief share out. Aaron, I'll look to you in case there's anything by way of public comment. And in the interim, we'll spend like 90 seconds here or so, just open EAG chiming in before we wrap for the
deepest need customers. And typically our team hits about 12,000 customers a year as a whole team. So we really prioritize kind of going out into communities and reaching the customers who may not get the emails, who may not get communication otherwise from PSE. So we really try to be very targeted. So we average between 10 and 12,000 customers a year that our team of 8 currently hits. And so if we've got, it's a little over 10% of the kind of total customer count for deepest need. Although named communities, I think I couldn't give you an exact number in that particular case. But out of those, 10,000 customers, I think this year we were able to sign up about 3,000 of those customers for bill assistance programs. And so that's just some of the work that we try to do and hitting those targets and being a part of the lever that does the work.
And I'll just add on that, those are the numbers that we have direct engagement with that our team tracks. But also, as we've been talking about, we partner with the third-party community-based organizations who then share information on our behalf. And I'm trying to pull up the numbers while I'm talking, but we meet a lot of them that way as well, right? Through other trusted entities in the community who can share it through their channels as well. I'll post it in the chat when I find it.
Yeah. We can post in the chat. We're at time and I want to respect folks' time. So we can, if folks want to hang back for a second here as things come into the chat, you can. If you are eager or need to hop off, you can also do so. We'll make sure that in the follow up, that what's sent out, we tracked those questions. And so those will be included in some written format, if not in this exact moment, then later for sure. So that was great. There was a lot to get into and dive into. Great job, folks, jumping right into the swing of a lot of big, complex questions. As mentioned, as far as full EAG meeting goes, this is our last of the year, a little recess in December. There's other items and things that will be up. You won't not hear from us there. And I got to vamp a little bit more from Melissa to add those numbers. And so, yeah, we're eager to continue working with you all, but hope you have, for those that are hopping off here, hope you have a good rest of your evening. And yeah, we'll talk again soon. Thanks, everyone.